Hello, everyone. Greetings, friends and colleagues from Canada. I'm sorry that I'm unable to be with you at the Congress in person and hope that there will be other opportunities in the future for me to visit Poland. Before I begin, I would like to honor and pay tribute to a friend and colleague who recently passed away, Dr. Paul T.P. Wong. Besides his pioneering work in positive psychology and meaning-centered therapy, Dr. Wong was an avid supporter of Viktor Frankl's system of logotherapy and existential analysis. May Paul's legacy be eternal. As some of you know, I'm in the midst of immigrating to my ancestral homeland, the island of Crete, Greece. Among other things, Greece will serve as our European base and inspiration for our meaning-centric work, including our writing and our teaching. As a result of this significant life transition, the main title of my lecture, A Greek Odyssey, in the Congress program, has taken on a very special and, of course, a personal meaning for me. In effect, like the Greek hero Odysseus, it is my own return to Ithaca. What the ancient Greeks referred to as living the good life, in my view, is really about living the meaningful life. It is with this particular focus in mind that I had proposed the topic of my lecture. As further background, let me emphasize that this lecture is grounded in my long-standing experience, both as an academic and as a practitioner, in three key areas: existential philosophy, including and especially ancient Greek philosophy; humanistic psychology, especially from the last 25 plus years working with and advancing the ageless wisdom of Dr. Viktor E. Frankl, as well as from my work in organizational and political psychology; and third, political science, including public administration and public policy. It is said that patience is a virtue. To be sure, I've had to examine the deeper meaning of this saying in the recent months in order to navigate the complex immigration process in an effective, healthy, and meaningful way, since patience alone is insufficient to achieve one's goals. I call this kind of meaning analysis existential digging, a process that is based on a mindset that is closely aligned with the famous dictum, "The unexamined life is not worth living," attributed to Socrates. Likewise, it is consistent with yet another Greek philosophical maxim or aphorism, "Know thyself," that's inscribed on the temple of Apollo at Delphi in Greece. A maxim that importantly also has been interpreted as "know your soul," which is an interesting thing I will get into in a few moments. Since, as I mentioned, my ancestral homeland is Greece, specifically the island of Crete, as I said, and since Dr. Frankl was inspired by and referenced many Greek concepts and words in his own work, including the naming his system of psychotherapy, logotherapy, it was only natural for me to integrate Greek philosophy, mythology, and culture into my own meaning-focused work. My personal story and journey, for as long as I can remember, have been inspired by and guided by the search for meaning. This quest has also been influenced over the years by my Greek heritage and ancestry. It was actually another quote from a Greek philosopher, Plato, who said, "Man, a being in search of meaning." Now let's compare Plato's line of thinking to that of Dr. Frankl, who espoused that the search for meaning is the primary intrinsic motivation of human beings. Moreover, this quest for meaning, I would argue, can be viewed literally and figuratively as an odyssey in spirit, mind, and body. Note that I said spirit, mind, and body, not mind, body, spirit, and I'm going to get into that as well in a few moments. I have long espoused that life doesn't happen to us, rather we happen to life, and we make it meaningful. In this context, life is a mission, not simply a series of tasks, and each of us is personally responsible for weaving our unique tapestry of existence. The threads of my own personal tapestry of existence include a number of defining life experiences, or what I like to call meaning milestones. Let me briefly now touch upon these threads and demonstrate how they can be woven together. It started back in the 1990s, mid-1990s, where I did a lot of work at the time in what's called innovation. And the innovation particularly was about how we innovate in our life and in our work, and specifically with a focus, in my view, on innovating with meaning. Conceptually and practically, it was founded and became kind of the catalyst for this innovation work that I was involved with in a book that was written. It was a best-selling book called The Seeds of Innovation that was written by my wife and frequent co-author, Elaine Dundon. In The Seeds of Innovation, Elaine had articulated 3 bags of seeds or concepts that we could use to not only define but also implement this whole innovation agenda. The first one was obviously the seeds of creative thinking, that creative thinking is important. We have to come up with new ideas, and we need to be able to share those ideas with others. The second seed, bag of seeds, is what's called the seeds of strategic thinking. And the strategic thinking is really kind of, as we'll see in a moment, about the purpose. What are we trying to accomplish with our innovation system that we're trying to put in place? And then the third bag, which is really the foundational bag of these seeds, are the seeds of what we call transformational thinking. And this is really an important element that will maybe establish how the next threads that I'll be talking about came together. Elaine and I co-developed the first course of its kind at a university on innovation management that was focused on the human side of innovation. In other words, not about technology per se, not about information technology or not about products, but it was really about how human beings can become more creative, strategic, and transformational in their own way of life and their way of thinking so that they can innovate not just at work, but also in terms of their personal life. Because we have a very strong believer that you can't have organizational transformation or even societal transformation for that matter without personal transformation. So really the human side of innovation was really dependent upon meaning as a driver of both the personal and the organizational transformation process. The seeds of transformational thinking in particular included three key areas. Seeking greater awareness, which awareness is going to be something that, again, is going to be very, very important in terms of this whole model of innovation of meaning that I want to share with you today. Second seed of transformational thinking concept is about igniting passion. Or in the case of the Greeks, the word passion can also be correlated to the word enthusiasm, which has a very deep spiritual meaning, which I will also share with you. And then thirdly, it's about taking action. Once again, it's not in and of themselves patience that will matter the most to us, because patience and hope are not strategies per se. We have to do something in order to achieve our objectives. Okay, so that's really one thread that I'm talking about, which is the innovation management thread, which, again, I'll weave in together with the others. The second major thread is advancing the life and legacy of Viktor Frankl, the true pioneer of meaning. Here, I want to emphasize that there was a publication of our book, Prisoners of Our Thoughts, which is now in a third edition, 26 plus languages in multiple formats. And it was that book that really became the foundation for so much of our work from the time it was initially published, which was the end of 2004, early 2005. And the notion of the book itself, Prisoners of Our Thoughts, which many of you probably know people who are prisoners of their thoughts, or you might hold other people prisoner in your thoughts. But the whole notion here for us is how to use this notion of meaning, which is, again, this primary intrinsic driver that Dr. Frankl articulated, and use that as a way to explore, again, from a Greek perspective, a Greek metaphor, the labyrinth of meaning. And we actually wrote a chapter in the book, Prisoners of Our Thoughts, about the labyrinth, which, again, is a very strong Greek concept, even in Crete. In Crete, we have the mythology of Theseus and the Minotaur and the labyrinth and so forth. But it's a notion of exploring life as if it's a labyrinth with a meaning focus is a very important element in our work and what message I'm trying to share with you today. So from Dr. Frankl's perspective, the realization or actualization of values as a source of and a path to meaning, and he articulated creative values, experiential values, and attitudinal values in his work. Those values are closely aligned to the seeds of innovation construct that I just shared with you, because the idea, again, creative thinking is going to have to be based on creative values. Experiential values is going to be connecting and so forth with the outside world, with other people and so forth. And of course, attitude, which we're going to get into, is a primary element of logoterapii as well, is closely aligned to how can we ignite passion if we've got a bad attitude and we're going to feel we're stuck. And obviously that also relates to the whole notion of being a prisoner of one's thoughts. So I'm proud to share, by the way, that the third Polish edition of our international best-selling book, Prisoners of Our Thoughts, was released recently by Purana. So I really want, and I'm hoping that the book is available at the Congress when you're all there. So the third thread here that I'm trying to describe to you as I kind of come into something that will actually show you that this was an odyssey intellectually, cognitively, but it also is a personal odyssey on a physical plane because of our immigration to Greece, and it's also one that is very important emotionally to me to integrate all of these pieces together. So the third one is tracing meaning to the Greek the Greek philosophers, the Greek mythology, and the Greek culture. And it was the book that we wrote that really kind of encapsulates all of this is called the OPA way. OPA is a common Greek word and so forth that you've heard, or a concept. And I want to share this because the OPA way is both a paradigm and a formula for meaning that we wrote about in the OPA way book. We started originally with the ancient definition of OPA, which really comes with two different sides, almost like the yin and the yang. There's two sides of OPA because in the ancient Greek language and in the modern Greek ones as well, there are two letter O's. There's omega and there's omicron. And so the Omicron version is really about celebrating life, manifesting the spirit God divine within, which is enthusiasm, as I mentioned. The omega side of OPA is really about an awareness. Okay, going back to that notion of awareness, right? Our basic belief system is it's more important to be aware sometimes than it is to be smart. We have many people who have advanced degrees and have all this experience, but they're not aware of how they affect other people. They're not aware of what the potential opportunities are in their future or the dangers that maybe are on their path. And so awareness becomes an important part. So the ancient definition of OPA, as we delve into the readings of Homer, etc., is that OPA with the omega sign, the letter, the first letter in the word, is awareness and looking out both for opportunities in life, in work, and also looking out for any dangers or any obstacles that might be there. We took that notion of ancient OPA and we developed a contemporary definition of OPA, which if we look at it in the English language, it's O, P, and A. The O and again, if you read the book, The OPA Way, this will become more clear. The O stands for connecting meaningfully and authentically with others. Others is the O. The P is engaging with deeper purpose. Okay, now we can see this purpose is also, as we go back to the innovation idea, it's almost having a strategic goalpost to go towards. We have to have a direction. We have to have, as Viktor Frankl said, we have to have an aim. And the A is attitude. It's embracing life, all of life, with attitude. So if you took the O and added the P and the A, there comes a formula. When you put them together, that's OPA, or as the Greeks like to say with enthusiasm, OPA. Okay. So where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a purpose, there's a will. Now, that's the purpose, the P in OPA, but that's also a paraphrase from, as you're probably aware, Viktor Frankl once has written, where there's a will, there's an aim. Where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's an aim, there's a will. So we took the word aim, and we in the concept of the OPA formula, we basically took aim and say, okay, that's our purpose, because that's really the destination we're trying to go to. That's the purpose component of the OPA formula. So, and then the fourth thread, if you will, is really advancing a new discipline that Elaine and I have been working on for a number of years now. And we're calling it, based on the notion of the Greek language and so forth, we're calling it meaningology. Now, meaningology to us, in very simple terms, is the study and practice of meaning in life, work, and society. Our work is not just focused, obviously, on clinical applications. We look at a lot of non-clinical applications. We look at bringing meaning into the workplace. We look at trying to bring the search for meaning into politics, into government. Obviously, nowadays, it's an important element, and it's obviously a challenge for all of us. But this is something that we really believe is going to be necessary if we're going to even improve the way humanity is and protect humanity. And what we're doing with meaningology is we're looking at integrating and extending, based on our empirical research and our practical experience in existential philosophy, humanistic psychology, and innovation management, as I mentioned, and extending that into kind of a new paradigm and a discipline that we can really help all of us focus on research. And this is partly the reason why Viktor Frankl's work to me has been so important, because I remember one time having a discussion and I was asked, well, geez, instead of just working in Dr. Frankl's shadow, can you do something maybe and apply some of the things that are outside of that? So this is the reason why the meaningology notion here, there was a catalyst for this. And I'm just kind of sharing that with you. So again, as I mentioned earlier, mind, body, spirit, which is very commonly a phrase people use all the time, we really put it and reversed it and said, no, it's really about spirit, mind, body. Spirit is really, it's that noetic dimension, that emphasis that, again, Viktor Frankl's work really focused on. Because it was really the spirit of the soul that, to me, is one of the most important elements of who we are as human beings and our uniqueness as human beings. And I've said this many times in speeches and lectures, that our most soulful times in life are when we're out of balance, not when we are in balance. So a lot of people are always looking for a work-life balance. We're looking for everything to be working somewhat in control, and things are going smoothly all the time. And I can tell you, is going through this immigration process to Greece, there's nothing that's in balance. I mean, it's chaos. It's working with the bureaucracies on both sides of the ocean. There's so many steps and things that are literally out of our control. And so that's just on a personal level. And of course, now we got the same thing with economics, geopolitics, and so forth. So we have to understand that we have to be able to be not looking just for balance all the time, but we really need to build our resilience. And if I had some political statement to say about this, is I do believe that so much of what's been happening in our Western world, particularly Western society, Western culture, Western civilization, is that many of the younger generations seem to be losing their resilience factor in order to deal with stresses and so forth. I constantly hear all this thing about we need to build safe spaces for everybody. And the idea of a safe space is, well, imagine that. If everything had to be safe, we wouldn't have challenges, we wouldn't have debates, we wouldn't have innovation, because we have to be willing to present things and have people react to that, have our ideas rejected sometimes, come back with new ideas. I mean, all these things, and this is all this. So this resilience thing really is driven by our spiritual core. That is a very important element. So meaningsology for us is a way to help demystify the search for meaning by grounding it in the principles and applications of logotherapy and existential analysis that was espoused so famously by Dr. Viktor Frankl, in the core lessons, elements, practice, and pathways, we call it the Opal Way paradigm, which is, again, a formula for meaning. That's really, again, others, connecting meaningfully with others, engaging with deeper purpose, and embracing life, all of life, ups and downs, joys and sorrows, etc., with attitude, a positive, resilient attitude, by the way, and the seeds of innovation, which are the seeds of creative thinking, the seeds of strategic thinking, and of course the seeds of transformational thinking, which is really about who we are as human beings. So our definition of meaning within this meaningsology kind of perspective, or from this meaningsology perspective, is really about how we can help people connect with their core essence or their true nature. What are the things that really matter to them? What are the things that actually drive them? What are the things that help them not only seek greater awareness, be curious, be able to allow them to ignite their passions so that they can move forward on things and not just give up and not become a prisoner of their thoughts? And then what are the things that allow them to actually take action so that they can actually don't feel that they have to sit back and wait? And I'll tell you, after the recent political elections and so forth, which I know you all know about, I know a lot of people in Europe, I mean, they're concerned. What's the future of democracy? What's going to happen to the planet? What's going to happen to humanity? I mean, the issue here is that we really need to start to realize that if we don't get back to our spiritual core and understand that we are, as Viktor Frankl said, there's only one race, and that's the human race, and we need to start to figure out how can we stop this trend towards polarization and divisiveness and move more and more towards uniting and working collaboratively. So to me, there has been, and I've written about this a lot with Elaine, there's a crisis of meaning in life, work, and society today. And so the challenge that I see, and again, this is the political science part of my background, is humanity approaching a major turning point? Is Western civilization at risk? Is it possibly even in decay, as some analysts are actually suggesting? I mean, this is something that, I'm not sure how you all feel about the world as it's going right now. Which way is it rotating, and is it going, and how does Poland fit into all of this, etc.? But I mean, these are really important questions about, is there a crisis of meaning in Poland? You have to ask yourself these questions. And in an era of emerging transhumanism and artificial intelligence, policy and program initiatives, logotherapy can be, and in my view should be, a significant counterbalancing force to ensure that humanity is not only safeguarded, but it is also advanced in ways that respect and address the existential and, of course, the spiritual needs of all human beings. And again, this is the challenge. If we are going to be looking at the potential of Western society being at risk, it's really going to be up to us to do something. I mean, after all, Dr. Frankl developed his system of logotherapy with special emphasis on its spiritual foundation. For example, in the introduction to his book, The Doctor and the Soul, he wrote, and I'll quote, "A psychotherapy which not only recognizes man's spirit, but actually starts from it, may be termed logotherapy. In this connection, logos," a Greek word, by the way, "is intended to signify the spiritual and beyond that, the meaning. Okay, so furthermore, the fact that existential has become a very popular word in recent years. For example, in 2019, dictionary.com named it the word of the year. It also implies that there is a crisis of meaning somewhere in our life space that needs to be seriously addressed. So in this regard, who's better suited to address this pressing global issue of the crisis of meaning than the logotherapy community? So you all in this Congress should really be using this space to interact not just with your colleagues, but to do some self-reflection, know thyself, and look at ways in which you can connect meaningfully with others, the O and OPA, and engage together in deeper purpose, all right? And obviously maintain a resilient and a positive attitude so that at least the level of optimism that you can all share with each other allows you to be resilient, because we are facing many challenges today that need to be addressed. In my own writing and teaching, I've shared the deep spiritual and the metaphysical meaning of the Greek word logos, which not surprisingly also happens to be the root of the word dialogue. The meaning and use of logos in this particular way can be traced to the pre-Socratic period of philosophical and theological thought, and it's a building block of the Socratic method. In turn, the Socratic method, as you all certainly are aware, is an essential tool in the professional practice of logotherapy and existential analysis in both clinical and non-clinical settings. The next age of enlightenment I'm going to propose will begin when we are no longer prisoners of our thoughts, when we recognize that all lives matter, and when we believe that all life has meaning. So this gets me now to the point of lifestyle medicine. Recognizing, and I've learned this especially most recently, that there are many public health advocates who really aren't advocates of a public health system. They are basically advocates for disease management. And I used to work in the governments in the United States. I've worked with governments, many governments around the world, but particularly in the U.S., I worked with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, for example, and at the time that I was working with them as a consultant, the idea of the professionalism and the expertise of the science and so forth was superb. I do think that a lot of this has changed in recent years, but this is something we have to deal with, and I'm hoping that things can change and go back towards a more common sense approach in which we really actually advocate for the right things. But instead of public health being kind of the focus of the public health quote unquote systems, I'm going to call them non-systems, is that we really create problems, we create all kinds of illnesses and diseases, and then we try to find the solutions for them so that we can manage them. But we're really not finding solutions. As I said, we're managing these. And so we have a lot of things. For example, in the United States, there have been dramatic increases in what's called deaths of despair. Deaths of despair. People become really despondent, they become depressed, and we have in Canada, where I'm seated here right now, Canada is one of the leading countries, if not the leading countries, in medically assisted suicide, euthanasia. And some of the people that are getting this quote unquote service, if you will, are people who are basically presumably depressed. We're not talking about people who are on life support anymore. And so the idea of offering this, it's almost a bizarre case of totally ignoring Hippocrates, the Greek, really the father of Greek medicine and of modern day medicine. And when you look at Hippocrates' first major line that supposedly in medical schools people are supposed to say and learn, first do no harm. How can suicide, euthanasia be something that we would promote and advance when we have other options? And I actually know people who actually have been encouraged to take this medically assisted suicide because they feel depressed because they say they don't have a home. Well, we're kind of missing the boat here in terms of how we're addressing some of these social problems and issues. So we have escalating and debilitating stress, which has been a key driver behind illnesses and diseases. And this kind of relates also to what Viktor Frankl, I remember, articulated about what was called the mass neurotic triad. He identified a long time ago the triad consisting of addiction, aggression, and depression. And think about it for a moment. To what extent have those three elements, those three drivers of this triad, to what extent have they been improved over the years? since Dr. Frankl first wrote about them. I mean, if anything, they've gotten tremendously worse, significantly worse, and we haven't really dealt with it. We have more addictions and more kinds of addictions. We have more kinds of aggression now, and certainly we have an increase in, as I said, depression, which result in even things like deaths of despair. And I think a large part of this has been driven by some things that really relate to what I'm going to get into now then in terms of the lifestyle medicine, is that, when I was younger, I remember hearing some of the advertisements in the U.S. about better living through chemistry. And so we had an increasing, and this has been a major issue. This was a major political issue in the recent campaign for the U.S. presidency with Donald Trump and Robert Kennedy Jr., but the whole notion of the influence of big pharma on lifestyles and on health. And so that's one issue. And then the other side of it is that we have such an obsession with comforting people, the comforts of the so-called postmodern age, postmodern living, and that people are becoming not just ill because they're obese, overweight, all kinds of disease. We're getting diabetes. People are no longer do the kinds of exercise. We stay inside. We end up instead of connecting with nature and doing outdoor activities, you have young generations that spend almost their entire time on the internet, on their smartphones, etc. And so we're losing a lot of things. We're losing the meaningful connections. I mean, there's when you look at some of the social media platforms like Facebook, we have people that have hundreds, if not thousands, of friends, but the reality is that they're lonely. And so these are the kinds of things that, again, the Oprah Way addresses in terms of connecting meaningfully with others. To what extent are we doing this? And to be honest with you, I don't like what I'm doing right now, talking to you like this, because I'm much better. Obviously, I'm of Greek heritage. I'd rather dance with you and drink with you and eat with you and be able to engage and feel the energy from you, which I don't right now, because right now, giving you this lecture is very two-dimensional, and there's very little life to it other than my moving my hands right now. So this is something that's important that I hope that I have a chance to meet with you in person someday, and we actually can get some feedback and discussion and dialogue and really do some things that will actually raise our consciousness, all of us. Anyway, the point here is that there's a strong relationship between meaning, the search for meaning, and what's referred to now as lifestyle medicine. Okay, so the idea is that logotherapy, as both in concept and in practice, provided, according to what Viktor Frankl had written about, a pathway to health through meaning. So in other words, the idea is that logotherapy could be looked at as a way of advancing health through the search for meaning. And it's in this context that the human quest for meaning can be viewed holistically as a manifestation of health, again, in spirit, in mind, and in body. So by extension, it's also a manifestation of this new medical practice focus called lifestyle medicine, which is trying to identify and treat the root causes of disease rather than simply managing the symptoms of disease and illnesses per se. So that's why in that case, it goes beyond what's also referred to as holistic or integrative medicine, because you can have an integrative approach and still basically not allow people to, or not engage people to really examine their own lifestyle and to what extent can they take control of their health, can take control of their spirit, mind, body ability to address challenges. If all you're going to do is prescribe a new drug, or you're going to just say, well, you need to have X surgery. Not that there aren't cases, obviously we need that, but what I'm saying here is that the search for meaning is a major driver of helping people engage in life, be able to be more resilient, and helps them improve their health in spirit, mind, body when they have that. And you can see this. I remember going into different organizations and working with clients, and I could see what those people that have living a meaningful existence, or their life has the kind of sense of connecting with others, has a sense of deeper purpose, and has an attitude that's really contagious. They're much more likely to be healthier than those people that don't have those things. So there's growing evidence that there are a wide variety of health-related, illness-related conditions today that can be identified as lifestyle diseases. And this has been written about lifestyle medicine. A lot of these things have been even in the media, particularly in the media in some countries in Asia and so forth, where they actually are acknowledging the fact that lifestyle is an important driver of health and on the other side, illness and disease. So many of, if not most of these lifestyle diseases are associated with or perhaps even caused by various existential or meaning-related factors and drivers. So this is something that, again, I would like you all to think about that as you're moving forward. So what does this mean? Well, this means that integrating logotherapy and existential analysis into the curriculum of medical schools and other healthcare education and training programs, both pre-service and in-service, is definitely a goal worth pursuing. And so this is something that we ought to be focusing on. And really has to be something that is enabling people to understand that they are, again, personally responsible, that they're co-creating their health. And just like, in political science, there's a sense that we can co-create public services. So in other words, when somebody installs a smoke detector in their house, in their apartment, the idea is that smoke detector is actually co-creating fire protection. They're not just waiting for the fire to start and then call the fire department. So the idea here in health is the same way. So we can't just be sitting and just being patience is a virtue and just allow ourselves to decay on a personal level, on a group collective level, and on a societal level. And these are things that require us to take action. So, but here is another Greek philosopher that I would like to refer to, and that's Aristotle. Aristotle said, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And I'm going to say educating the mind without educating the spirit or the soul is no education at all. And this is one of the things we have to somehow figure out. And again, I'm challenging you, but I'm also asking you, because I'm not there, if whether or not these are the things that resonate with you and these are things that are happening in Poland right now. I really would love to know that. There's something that just recently, in the last few days, ended. It was the third year that in Crete, again, my homeland, ancestral homeland, they had what's called the Cretan Lifestyle Conference. And this Cretan Lifestyle Conference, which was actually sponsored by Harvard University, the School of Medicine, Medical School, and the School of Public Health, that lifestyle conference is really about advancing this whole notion of lifestyle medicine. And I'm really proud the fact that one of the main driver behind this Cretan Lifestyle Conference is a Greek American and a very passionate one. And he's a physician, a professor at Harvard Medical School. And I'm really proud to not only have him as a friend, as a colleague, but also to know that this lifestyle medicine thing is being driven and being kind of centered on the island of Crete. And why is this important? Because as a result of this conference, these last 3 years, they've now created a Hellenic Center of excellence for health and wellness that is now in Crete. So I'm hoping that Hellenic Center of Excellence in Health and Wellness is something that Elaine and I will be able to integrate some of our meaning work so that we make sure that, again, going back to educating doctors, physicians, etc., that we educate the heart and the soul, not just the technical things about their biology and biochemistry. So it's my hope that what I've shared with you in this short presentation stimulates your thinking and provides some meaningful tools, food for thought and tools that will help you as you participate and become engaged in this Congress. Of course, I also hope that you view my remarks as a call to action, one that will encourage each of you to help advance logotherapy and existential analysis, both as a philosophy of living, and as well as a philosophy of working, and as a practical methodology for improving lives, organizations, that's organizations across sectors, public, private, nonprofit, and industries, all industries, and that society at large, through the human quest for meaning. This is something that will help all of us to embrace and advance the life and legacy of Dr. Frankl. I'm also hoping that my remarks will also show you that so much of what we're doing today has ancient roots. And not just in Greece, obviously in other countries. And I've done it, but I'm focused on that because obviously I have a bias because I'm immigrating to Greece and I'm calling this my Greek Odyssey. So it's a Greek Odyssey intellectually, cognitively, it's a Greek Odyssey emotionally, and it's certainly a Greek Odyssey physically since I've been in this process of moving. I wish that, as I said earlier, that this move had happened back, a couple months ago, because then I would be with you in person. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. So I'm hoping that will happen sometime in the future. I do wish you all a very successful, memorable, and obviously meaningful Congress. Thank you very much for listening to me.